At the age of 40, and my identity was external, my job. I had a, quote, comfortable executive job, and I was asked to resign. And that was really the crucible, the change that really charted my life in the direction God that I was born to do. And I was asked to resign, and less than a month after that, my first book was published in
Folks, there are people that you meet that it's just something about them that lingers with you long after they've left the room. And our guest today, it was one of those people. Last year, when I was going through one of the most difficult courses of my professional or educational career at Emory, I had the opportunity to meet Byrd. He was standing. Now, for those of you that met me in real life, you know how tall I am. But he was standing down at the podium in the area with a couple other folks, people walking around the rooms. And there were 42 veterans in a room embarking on a journey that would transform their life. After that, time went on. We saw Byrd a couple more times. After that, time went on. So I've got to figure out how to get in touch with this guy. Went on LinkedIn, saw he was in Nashville. And earlier this year, we had a chance to reconnect over coffee. After said coffee, we had a chance to hang out with a phenomenal nonprofit organization here in Nashville called 413 Strong, which more to come on that. And today, he is my esteemed guest, Byrd Baggett.
Thanks, Lee. I'm honored to be here, blessed to be here. Thank you.
Byrd, I would like to, I know a little bit about your story, but they don't. And I feel like the world should know a little bit about your story and perhaps a friend of your story as well. Who is Byrd?
Wow, good question, story. I'm 76 years old, working on 77, and I guess I would call myself God's laboratory rat, Lee. I grew up in Texas, I'm a blue-collar guy in a white-collar world. Had wonderful parents in Texas, and I was gifted athletically. I almost said intellectually. That's a question. So I had to have a scholarship to go to college, and I was very, very blessed and fortunate to get a scholarship in track and attend the University of Texas, which you know, from 1969 to 1972. And when I got out of college, you know, my ego was pretty big. You know, I wanted things that I never had growing up. By the way, when I got what I had was never enough.
Yes.
So I went to work for a Fortune 500 company, and in 13 jobs, 7 careers, 14 moves, change. And at the age of 40, and my identity was external, my job. I had a, quote, comfortable executive job, and I was asked to resign. And that was really the crucible, the change that really charted my life in the direction God that I was born to do. And I was asked to resign, and less than a month after that, my first book was published in 1990. And so in 1994, with my wife's total support, I started a professional speaking career, and 15 books later, and then in 2007, which you know this, I met a retired 3-star general. We was living north of San Antonio on a lake. And you've heard me say, Lee, I don't believe in coincidence.
Yeah.
That's just God's way of remaining anonymous. So while we're here, is this coincidence? We were living on a lake north of San Antonio, and my wife was in a Bible study group. She came home one night, had a business card, said, "You need to meet this man, Lawson Magruder." And later that week, I met Lawson Magruder because his wife went home the same night, gave him my business card, said, "Y'all need to meet." And we met in a Greasy Spoon Cafe on Highway 306 for breakfast. And 4 hours later, we got up, and the True Growth Leadership curriculum was birthed in 2007. And I love speaking, but I want to go deeper with people. So True Growth Leadership, we've served over 16,000 leaders since 2007. And 3 years ago, we became part of the Masters in Business for Veterans, in Atlanta, which you were cohort number 2 graduate.
Yes.
Where I was blessed to meet my friend Lee Cage.
Byrd, I've seen some commentary that you have a very special friend in your life. Is it Jenny?
Jeannie, my wife. Yeah. It's interesting, golly, you bring that up, because I was reflecting last week of the people in my life that live the fruit of the Spirit, in the Bible: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, the 9 of them. The reason I got emotional, because the 2 people that live those fruits, they don't care about notoriety. It's my wife of 52 years and my dad, who worked 32 years in a chemical plant and only missed 5 days of work.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, Jeannie.
Yeah. Byrd, now, you talked about track, and I told them earlier, I am very tall compared to Byrd. That's sarcasm. But what was it like being, I think, an All-American, working through life, your experience, especially at that time in the late 60s and early 70s, and what is still some experiences for other people today? Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I was blessed, had a very blessed career. As you said earlier, I lettered 4 years. I was honored to be elected captain my junior and senior year. And I learned more about leadership, Lee, in retrospect on the track than I did at any classroom. And I think I've told you before, my track coach was the second most influential man in my life, next to my dad. And he told me this when I graduated in 1972. One of life's heaviest burdens is great potential. And then he also said this, people listening, that there are 2 pains in our life. We've got to pay one or the other when it's all over: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And what I'm most proud of, I gave every workout 100% and every race 100%, because that's what I owed the University of Texas and my teammates. And I have no regrets, the pain of discipline. And you've heard his story, and I still speak. I'm very, very discerning of what group, because, Lee, you know that my purpose is to live a life that inspires hope in others, and that's what I discovered when I went through our True Growth experience that you went through, discovered my purpose, along with my core values. And the reason that purpose to live a life that inspires hope in others means so much to me, because when I was at the University of Texas, 1969, 1972, those with different skin color than mine, especially the blacks folks, will appreciate this more than me. My track team at Texas, we had 1 black athlete.
Wow.
Yeah, Carl Johnson, and he lived by himself in the athletic dorm, and the worst disease is loneliness. And I won't get into the particulars, but he faced some very challenges, being demeaned and disparaged as a black man. He was the only black on our track team. But and I heard this years ago, you can live 40 days without food, 4 days without water, but only 4 seconds without hope. And I graduated in 72, and Carl was scheduled to graduate in 1973, which he did against all odds. And I'm living in Columbia, South Carolina, being trained for the Fortune 500 company. And I get a phone call one Saturday. It's my dad. And, when you're that age, unless you're in the military, 22, 23, bad news is your dog died, right?
Yeah.
But my dad called me up and said, "Bubba, I got some bad news." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Carl got killed yesterday in a freak car wreck." And I learned later that Carl had graduated in 73 against all odds. He was heading back to San Angelo, Texas, his hometown, to start his new life with a college degree to help his family get out of abject poverty and a car went out of this lane, hit him head on, killed him instantly. And you've heard his story, and I always share his story to keep his legacy alive. And what I'm most proud of is we started a scholarship called the Carl R. Johnson Spirit Award, Keeping Hope Alive, and it goes to a deserving male or female track athlete from his high school.
Wow.
And they have to write their story of perseverance. And we're able to give them some money so they can achieve their dream of going to college in honor of Carl. And you've heard me share his story, and a lot of people, when they hear the story, we were all Americans. We had the fastest time in the world in the sprint medley in Lawrence, Kansas in 1971, Kansas Relays. But a little part of that, you've heard about hope. I'll never forget this. We were headed to the track to run the prelims that morning, and we weren't expected to get out of the prelims, by the way. And went on to win, had fast time. We're all Americans. But this is important for people to hear. Ed and Dave, other two teammates, were in the van getting ready to go to the track to run the prelims, and Carl and I were the last out of the restaurant. And I'm the captain. It's my junior year. And Lee, I noticed Carl hadn't eaten, and I'm thinking, because it's winning, right? I'm thinking if Carl doesn't eat, if we keep progressing, he's
going to win.
Right. He's going to let the team down. And I'll never forget this. And I asked him, I said, Carl, why didn't you eat? And he had a very meek voice. He said, oh, Byrd, when we travel, I don't eat. Only time I eat's back in the athletic dorm in Austin. And I didn't get it, Lee, because the university gave us traveling money. And I said, well, Carl, what do you do with the money the university gives you? Listen to this. So, oh, Byrd, I send that money home to my mom and my dad so my brothers and sisters can eat. How old was he, 20? He already had a purpose to get a degree against all odds to help his family get out of abject poverty. That was his North Star. That kept hope alive for him. I'll never forget that. And when I speak to a group, I will not speak unless I can share Carl's story.
Byrd, you talked about, upcoming birthday, right?
Yeah.
As you look at your life, all the things you've accomplished, all the things that you've helped chaperone and support other people to accomplish. I mean, gosh, just this week, we made a connection of this and that and all these other things. It just, with Dr. Faison, right?
Right.
Just the whole lineup of those things. What is one thing you want to be remembered by?
On my tombstone, I wanted to say this simply. He lived a life that inspires hope in others. And I love every human being. I do. God don't make junk, but I'm very discerning of where I spend my time, energy, and money. And yesterday, I had lunch with Dr. Faison, John Faison, and then you and he connected yesterday. I love connecting people who want to keep hope alive for others. And and you and I've talked about this.
Yeah.
I'm huge on humility. Why do you think I love the military? And just, selfless service, integrity. He lived a life that inspires hope in others.
Byrd, now I'm going to lighten this up here, okay? I know you've done hundreds, if not thousands, of talks, but I have a suspicion that you probably like a little music. What does Byrd listen to in the car as he's driving down 65?
You know who one of my favorite artists is Lauren Daigle.
Okay.
My Revival. That song, and the reason I love it, I wear an eagle ring because my favorite scripture is Isaiah 40:31. Those who hope in the Lord renew their strength, soar on wings like eagles, run and not grow weary. Lauren Daigle. And I'm a Texan, so I love Willie Nelson.
Okay. Is it a requirement of Texas you must love?
Well, he's older than dirt.
Well, yeah. Sorry, Willie. Okay, we still love you.
We love Willie.
What is something that you've learned from someone else that you think the world deserves to know?
It's back to my wife. Love unconditionally. Matter of fact, I left this. I just had this made. I wear these to remind me. One of them, the green one, says, "Hope, pass it on." And the other is a red one with WWLD. What would love do? And that's to remind me. To me, that's the answer in the question, right? The question and the answer. What would love do? And my wife, yeah.
Yeah. I've got to meet her one day, okay?
We do, and meet yours too.
What is, ooh. Now, you write a lot. I see your posts on LinkedIn and all the things that you are sharing with the world. What is one thing that you have been most excited about in today's world? It's very different than 1969.
Well, Lee, great question. I was thinking this morning, I'm a metaphor guy. These are just rubber bands, right?
Yeah.
And it's like any part of our life, if we don't stretch it and get resilient, it rots, right, and cracks. But what's really near and dear to my heart today in this crazy hate and division, and to be honest, because I think the two most important responsibilities of a leader, talking to me, define reality, which is the truth, and keep hope alive. And what keeps me going today is an acronym, PhD.
Now, y'all, I have a hat that says this. This was something Byrd bought me. Okay, you all can see this. Will you tell them what it stands for?
Preserve human dignity.
There you go.
And that's my North Star. And because God doesn't make junk. So, and again, to preserve human dignity of the underserved and marginalized. I'm a white guy.
No.
And there's privileges to that, Lee, and I'm honest. I didn't have to deal with what Carl dealt with. So preserve human dignity.
I tell people, and this may be unpopular, but I will say it anyways, we all have some type of privilege and some type of disadvantage.
Amen.
The tall person that gets on the plane and the seats are too small has a disadvantage in that moment because they were made for someone who was not over 6 foot. It just wasn't. The short person has a disadvantage. The thing that I love about that is I tend to fall in the middle of that height. I have certain advantages and certain disadvantages. I've served, so sometimes I get a discount. That's an advantage. I'm a black guy. Sometimes it's an advantage, and many times it's a disadvantage. The thing that I think of when going back to this is the Army, when we run, and it's dark most mornings when we run, they put the shortest person in the front. They put the tallest person in the back. What tends to happen is as we're running, we try to keep the pace of the person with the most disadvantage. And then when, as it sometimes happens, when the tall people, start to move up to the middle, and they move up to the front, we have this thing where we loop back around because we don't leave people behind.
Love it.
It's in our core values. It's in our ethos. We literally say, I would never leave a fallen comrade. So I like to look at it from that perspective. How can I use my current advantage? Right now, I have a platform to talk to incredible people like you. I feel like the world deserves to hear this message. That's an advantage. The disadvantage may be something else. So that's a small...
Lee, that's a great perspective. And again, we got to look at life through the windshield, not the rearview mirror. Yes. Too many of us let the pain of the past keep us from the promises of the future.
What is one of the biggest challenges you have had to overcome?
In my life?
In your life.
My ego.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, a lot of people that meet me today, oh yeah, when I was younger. And Lee, I look back on my life, I'm very open, vulnerable, that, to be honest, my way of disguising a low self-esteem was to win. Mm-hmm. And one of, I'm known for quotes that's based on life, and one of mine, and again, I look back, most of the quotes reply to me, and follow the trail to your dreams, not the path of others' expectations, because I was a pleaser, still am. Got it under control, I think, but I was always comparing myself to other people, trying to please other people versus being at peace with who I was.
Have you found that peace today?
Oh, if you told me I could be as at peace as I am today, I didn't think I ever could be. And you've heard me say this, people always ask, Byrd, what's your favorite quote out of all your books? And this is it. It will always be. Success at the expense of faith and family is really failure.
So I have a question. And I'm just gonna ask this, Byrd, because I feel like General Smith, by the way, General Matt Smith, Emory University, big shout out to him and all those folks. But General Smith, I asked him this question and he gave a terrible answer. Okay? Cats or dogs, Byrd? We need to throw the vote one way or the other way. Okay?
If Matt's listening to this, okay, it's simple answer for me is dogs.
Dogs.
I love dogs.
Okay. So
they're sassy right there. And our dog, we have a golden doodle named Bo.
So General Smith has two cats, and he talked a little bit about them. I think one of them was Smith and Wesson. Okay, but I
that's funny. If you're watching this, that surprised me. He's a cat person.
The Army doesn't issue any cats. Okay, we have dogs.
That is good. That is good.
You're supposed to, come into the Army and leave the Army with just what was getting provided to you.
Right?
Big dogs. I want to open it up to you, and I'll turn the mic to you to ask me questions, or maybe if there's something you would like to share, or that you're wondering as well.
No, Lee. I thank you. I'm honored to be here. I've lived a lot of life, and it's just an honor to share what may have helped me in the crucibles. But what I really respect about you, Lee, is your humility and your story. Because, when we had breakfast that morning in Cobb, you just told me, because people that see Lee on this interview, handsome young man, successful, Masters in Business for Veterans from Emory. By the way, unbelievable program. And if you know a veteran that's interested in a great program, I encourage them to look at Masters in Business for Veterans. But when I met you, I always ask people, tell me about your past. Tell me about your crucibles. And the fact what you've had to overcome in your life, it is how have you been able, and what was your greatest obstacle to growth in your life?
Well, I wasn't prepared for that question.
Well, I think people need to know, because you faced a lot of adversity.
My grandfather he's now since passed, was one of my heroes. My uncle, who I lovingly call my Uncle Dad, still living, is one of my heroes. But seeing their resilience, seeing their character, seeing how people treated them, how people, the micro expressions that people made before they even made the face that they wanted, the joy that they would get when they would, Joe? My grandfather wasn't a rich man. When he passed, we cleaned out dozens of lawnmowers from his house because he was a mechanic. And when people couldn't afford to pay him for the work, he would say, you can just give me an old lawnmower and I'll fix it up and I'll sell it and I'll be made whole.
Wow.
We couldn't give away enough lawnmowers when he passed. My uncle, who served 20-something odd years in the military, retired as a lieutenant colonel, was in always gifts, always shows up for other people. It doesn't matter what it is. Every meaningful moment of my life, he has been there. operating as a father, even though he has kids of his own, filling a void that was not his obligation to fill. When I got, we were close to getting married, got engaged, we were close to getting married, and we're preparing the house and preparing the things, families coming in. And I got a call that he had been rushed to the emergency room, that they were going to have to do open heart surgery on him. And I think that was one of the moments I realized that he was human.
Wow.
Because my entire life, the way that he showed up for other people with no expectation of anything else, that's all I ever knew. I didn't put him as a god, but I certainly put him as a Superman. And so when I think about my life and raising a brother and, taking care of my mom when she was sick and trying to plan things and trying to just be a good human, I'm also now balancing the fact that I too am a human and not a Superman.
It's just to see your facial expression change when you think about those people in your life that were there, that were wind beneath your wings, that didn't want any, didn't do it for notoriety, didn't do it for money, recognition. And Lee, I got to believe that, in all the work we've done at True Growth, over 16,000 leaders, your uncle and the people that you admired and respect, I think they have these three virtues. They live them. Is integrity of character.
Yes.
Compassion.
Yes.
Because if you don't love people, you'll never lead them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Integrity of character and humility. Isn't that it?
Yes.
And the people and you just light up when you think about it.
I do. I love them. I don't know. When I think about like the type of person I want to be when I grow up, I've always said I'd like to have a little money, but I'd also prefer that when people see me, that they get joy out of anticipating my arrival, that when I'm spending time with them, it's meaningful time and I'm focused on them. I'm not doing other things. I try to remember the small things that people tell me. I try to hold those. I work in a world where, I have customers all over, but most of my colleagues, are all over the country. So we don't get to see each other in real life, especially in comparison to people who work, on site with people, and you can build deep roots. And so early on, I had to find ways to make the same type of connections and networks, but virtually with people. I'm not a COVID virtual worker. I've been virtual primarily probably 10, 12 years.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I can go to a conference and see my virtual friend, my remote friend, and it's like we never took a step back.
Well, Lee, you know this, and you know this very well. Listeners know this. People that are watching know this. When you see somebody or meet somebody or talk to less than 5 minutes, you feel whether they are authentic or not, right?
Yes.
And the number one thing people want, in all surveys, by the way, my daddy would say, Bubba, that's common sense. And I'd say, Daddy, don't call it common sense, call it good sense, because it's not real common. But the number one thing people want, I think that you're reinforcing, when we leave an engagement with them, whether it's virtual or in person, how do they feel? I believe people want to feel valued, secure, and appreciated. And I think when you and I met in Atlanta, to me, that was the connection. I love Lee Cage and what you stand for, and I don't really care about any of that other stuff. Yeah, we have to make a living, but I'd rather be living a life. And to me, and you're the same way, to keep hope alive for people. And when people reach out to you after you've done these podcasts and say, Lee, thank you for being vulnerable. I'm going through this. Because, there are a lot of people watching this that their lives might be in good order.
Mm-hmm.
They may be thinking about doing a bad thing. And it's, my latest keynote is how to live a good story. And I believe And the reason I came up with that was my daddy, the preacher said at my dad's funeral, he lived a good story. And when my dad died, Lee, he didn't have $20,000. But at his memorial service, it was overflowing from blue-collar workers, his peers, to millionaires.
Wow.
And 2 years before my daddy died, and I want people to listen to this, Byrd's successful All-American, 15 books, authored, and all that stuff, but this is what's most important. 2 years before my dad died, I was not in a good place, but I was successful. And I was sitting, I'll tell you exactly, we were at a swing overlooking the Texas Hill Country, which he loved the Texas Hill Country, and we were talking, and I asked him, I said, Daddy, why have you always been happy? Really, the word at least should be joy, because my dad had every reason not to be happy. It's like a lot of people with your skin color have a lot of reason not to be joyful.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah. My daddy grew up in the Depression, lost the love of his life, my mother, when she was 57. By the way, he stayed by her bedside in the hospital for 2 months. Wow. Showered and changed at the hospital. That's love. I lost a son, my brother, when he was 2 months old, who I never knew, Blue Baby. Survived major heart surgery. Matter of fact, he died on the operating table. We prayed him back. Quadruple bypass, by the way. And anyway, I asked him, Daddy, why have you always been? And if you met him, Lee, I get it from him. He wants to get to know you. He was always smiling, loved people. Used to drive my wife crazy because my wife's a taskmaster. But Daddy would meet somebody at a Whataburger, and I want to get to know the clerk. But anyway, I asked him, Daddy, why have you always been happy? And I'll never forget this. And this is what I want people to remember. He called me Bubba. He said, Bubba, I just think God put me here to serve other people. Lee, that's your key to success. If you don't love people, you'll never lead them.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I have this wristband. What would love do? And I'm 76. I'm still learning, Lee, because faith without works is dead.
Yes, it is.
I can tell you I love you, but what am I doing? And I just shared with this, I love this entrepreneur center here in Nashville, and I want to help other entrepreneurs because like being an entrepreneur is not easy. We eat what we kill, right?
Amen.
Well, and a lot of people, they know my story. Man, Byrd, you're a professional speaker. You made all this money. I said, don't quit your day job, because when I left and started speaking full-time, my wife's total faith, it wasn't always easy. We're one check away from, one speaking engagement away.
Yeah.
You were going to ask a question.
I want to go back a little, because as I hear you talk about your dad, as I hear you talk about your wife, what would you say to the person who doesn't have those people?
Lee, great questions. This is not your first rodeo. Good question.
And I guess I'll tell you the reason why. Sure. When I started dating and we got engaged, we got married, my father-in-law, we were sitting at a breakfast in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he looked at me and says, now, I'm going to just tell you, it's very baritone voice, over 6 feet, and you all know how tall I am, okay? He and we have the same haircut. He's military, was a pastor, does hard labor. He's a general contractor, so he's never been afraid to get his hands dirty. And he says, tell me why you want to do this. Why do you want to get married to Christian? Wow. But most importantly, what about Christian can't you live without? And I would say now dating and now been married for years, I've been tremendously more successful. I've been tremendously more joyous. I sleep. People's like, when do you sleep? I sleep well. Okay, I sleep very well, but I've had so much more in my life because I've had someone there supporting me.
Your wife.
And so what happens, what would you say to the person who doesn't have that has that void?
Well, you just made me realize how blessed I am, even with Jeannie. By the way, Jeannie's story is amazing. She was given away, lived in 4 foster homes before she was adopted. So her purpose in life is just to be a great mother and grandmother at Gigi. So, Lee, that's a good question, because when you don't have somebody like that, go find them. They're there. Reach out. Go to a Bible study group. I mean, go to join an organization and meet people who are authentic, who love you for who you are, not for what you can do for them.
Yes.
Meet the Lee Cages. But, I met you in Atlanta, 2 years ago? You reached out. We reached out. I love you. You're like my brother from another mother. And we got to take that effort, because they're out there in today's age of technology. Hey, I have all the technology, but relationships are high touch, not high tech. You and I, we hug, we smile. But there's a book called The Happiness Advantage written by Sean Acor. I read it years ago. But he said the 2 keys to happiness, and I like the word joy, by the way, because happiness, it depends on something happening external. But the 2 keys to joy, I'm substituting that word, gratitude and strong social connections, the Lee Cages. And again, true friends love you for who you are, not with what you can do for them. And you know this, we talk about reality. Lee, most men don't have a friend. They have a lot of acquaintances, right?
Yes.
When you and I get together and you talked about your story, and one of the first questions I ask people when I get to know them, tell me about your crucibles. Because, crucibles are what make us. That's why one of my favorite scriptures, I'm not a biblical scholar, I don't proselytize, but it's Romans 5:3-4. Suffering, perseverance, character, hope.
Yes.
Now, if we can spin off of that, Lee, if we may,
yes.
You mentioned 413 Strong.
Yeah.
You were there. I get emotional talking about 413 Strong. But tell people about your experience and just the backdrop. 413 Strong is a nonprofit here in Nashville, Tennessee, run by Steve Norris. Steve made a lot of money, but instead of sitting back relaxing, Steve started 413 Strong. He takes young men who basically have no hope. Most of them come through the court system. It's some of them's last chance. And it's a 40-day program that I've been involved with for over 2 years. I'm a mentor. I'm sold out to 413 Strong because they keep hope alive for young men. And Lee, this is important because I'm an old white guy. When we start off the mentoring, we have a breakout session the first Monday. I'll never forget this, when we talk about the core value, break the mold, because they got to break the mold. And I lead one of the breakout groups. There are only 2 white men in the breakout groups, and the other mentors are phenomenal. But I tell the young men that come to 14 Strong, in their 20s, early 20s, the streets raised them. And I'll tell them right on the front end, I say, it's easy for me to say this. You can trust me, and I love you, but I got to prove it. And Lee, my return is less than a month into that relationship. You'll have young men come up to me and hug me, say, I love you, Mr. Byrd. Wow. But you were there. Tell people what you feel about 413 Strong.
I'll tell you, Byrd, I was skeptical going first. I loved the name of the organization. I spent time on the website. I'm like, what is this place? I knew the area. I went to National School of the Arts, so in that same area. Yeah. I played piano or in drums, Byrd.
Yeah.
But so I pull up and I get out the car, and I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how I would feel or what it would be like. I will say this. I think the moment probably fueled me differently. Most of my engagements are with people who have access, who have greater privilege, who are professionals in their role. Maybe they're not the top of that, but they're emerging or existing professionals. And that tends to be
they really don't have to do without.
Correct. Most of my engagements.
Right.
But they're sitting, and I won't disclose anything we talked about in there for the protection of those young men. Right. We're in there, and people are going around the room, unprompted. There's no script. Mm-hmm. They're just telling the truth about their experience. They're just telling the truth about what they want to get out of this. They're just telling the truth about where they came from. They're just telling the truth about, there's no backdrop, there's no self-promotion, there's no I have to look better than. There also was zero, oh, well, I feel like somebody owed me this. They were owed nothing.
Because they had nothing.
And for many of them, especially in the group that I was in, I don't know. I spent some time working for a company called Corrections Corporation of America. Now called a different name, one of the largest private prison companies. And I used to tell people,
See, y'all didn't know that about Lee.
And even someone I consider to be a mentor and friend, Kim White, shout out to Kim White. I was CHRO over there. 2/3 of black men, at least at that time, would spend some type of time in jail. So because we were on performance management teams and ERPs and HR and was working in HR and doing all of that, I would tell people, I'm just glad to be on this side. Because now I get to see the people who are engaging with, who are hiring, who are being responsible for, who are treating and caring, all those things, the people who will spend that time, some of which are guilty, some of which are consequences of their environment, some of which are innocent. But I wanted to see what it was like for those people providing the care or the services, as well as those that were in that room, and bringing it back.
Wow.
I had an opportunity to really see how they felt, to see what opportunities they never got. For me, I had my uncle and my grandfather.
You had the Army.
I had the Army. I enlisted at 17 years old.
I love this, by the way, because this is not scripted, folks, as you can tell. Let me tell you something that happened last Monday, Lee. This new cohort at 413 Strong, there are 13 young men. They're in week 3 or 4. And we did our breakout session, and we talked about hope, and we talked about trusting the process and looking at life through the windshield, not the rear view mirror, and that God forgives us. And there's a young man in there who, like you, has a wonderful smile. Of course, I love your smile.
Thank you. Walmart, buy one, get one free.
But, there's a poem called The Value of a Smile. And, folks, if you've not read it, Google it, The Value of a Smile, because it ends like this. That's why I love Lee's smile. For no one needs a smile so much as those have none left to give. And my favorite acronym, God inspires me on smile, special magic, and loving everyone. That's what a smile says. Well, anyway, I share that with you Because last Monday we were talking about God forgives, look at life through the windshield, not the rear view mirror. Easy for me to say, old white guy, privileged. And so we break up and everybody leaves the room, the mentors and the young men. And one of the young men stayed behind who I love them all. And he and I just connected. Great smile, Lee. Handsome young man. But he asked me, he said, Mr. Byrd, can I ask you a question? I said, of course. He said, when I was 14, I was convicted 3 homicides. You could just feel him deflate. And he said, can God forgive me for that? Wow. That's reality, folks. That's what they're dealing with. Lee, why do you think I do what I do? Live a life that inspires hope in others. Of course, my response to him, and a lot of these people have never studied the Bible. They've had people maybe use it against them. And I said, it's true, God forgave you then, he forgives you now. Obviously, you need to not do that again, which you haven't.
Right.
But Lee, he had been letting that guilt that was his cross. And to hug him and say, God forgives you, God loves you. That young man, Lee, taught me more about life last Monday than any book will.
Bert, you may know this, but my biological father was murdered when I was 2, 3 years old. He was stabbed by his brother, who spent just a couple weeks in jail. He wasn't even in the ground before said brother was, the grass hadn't even grown before said brother was asking what they were going to do with his shoes, because they were the same size. For a long time, I struggled to forgive him. I think when we can forgive ourselves and we can forgive others, both things have to happen, we live a better life.
Lee, amen, the worst disease a person can have was like Carl, my teammate, is loneliness, right?
Mm-hmm.
With somebody not having a mentor, somebody loves them unconditionally, right?
Yep.
The greatest gift that you can give yourself and others is forgiveness. And you just said something very profound. Lee just did. You got to forgive yourself before you can forgive other people.
Yes.
And I can't love Lee, I can't love whoever it is if I don't love myself. For years, I didn't even like myself because my identity was external. So, Lee, that's profound. And, boy, I can sure understand that, your daddy, his brother, but hate just, I love what Nelson Mandela said, one of my heroes, 27 years, right, in a prison. And when he was released, he had every reason to be bitter, didn't he?
Yeah.
It applies to you. And they asked him, why aren't you angry? Why don't you want to get even? You know what he said? Bitterness is like drinking acid and waiting for the other person to die. Grace and mercy, forgiveness.
I hope the young man forgives himself. As a person who has lost someone due to not an accident, but like a direct heinous crime, I know what the journey is to forgive the other person.
Sure. People say they hear this and they say, I know how you feel. No, I don't understand. I've never experienced that. That's why I love Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit number 5, Lee, seek first to understand. Because if I'm hearing your story and I'm waiting to respond to my story, You feel that, don't you?
Yeah.
You know that I don't really care. So when that young man, Monday, and if you met him today, you would never, again, look at life through the windshield. Too many people let the pain of the past keep them from the promises of the future. Lee Cage, that situation with your daddy getting killed, you could have let bitterness destroy your life. You know that. Isn't that true?
Yeah. There's a I forget what it's called, a little story, but there was a guy who was an alcoholic. He had 2 sons. One of his sons grew up and became an alcoholic. And they asked him why, and he said, because my daddy was an alcoholic. The other son grew up and treated alcoholics. And they asked him why he had spent his entire life treating alcoholics. He said, because my daddy was an alcoholic. Some of it is our circumstance. Some of it is our own desire to change or to be different or to evolve or to not have the same things happen again.
Lee, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It's a choice, isn't it? My son-in-law, who works at 413 Strong, who's a case manager, he deals with the parole officers, the court system.
Wow.
I love him dearly. His name's Joe. I never would have picked Joe to marry our daughter. Joe's all tattooed up. He was a street guy, ran drugs, quite a bit older than our daughter. But let me tell you, our son, our daughter, which I have her permission, she got addicted to opioids. Now, this is a young lady. She's beautiful, looks like my wife, right? She CPA, RN, made 1B her whole life, brilliant. She got addicted to opioids. In one of the many treatment centers she went to, one was in Austin, Texas, where a case manager, head of operations, was my future son-in-law.
What? Wow.
Love my daughter. So, by the way, no college degree, one of the most well-read, brightest people I've ever met, but most importantly, he loves people. Now, he's tough. These guys at 413 Strong, they can't get anything over on Joe, but the reason he's respected because they know he loves them. And Lee, if you really love somebody, you're going to practice tough love too, right?
Yes.
So your story is surround yourself with the precious few who believe in you. And you've helped me. This quote came to me recently. It ties into what you've been talking about. It doesn't matter what we have or what we accomplish in life. In the end, what really matters is who we have beside us.
None of the stuff goes with you when you
That's right.
So, Byrd, we're going to get to this point and end here, okay? I'm going to bring my phone out, and we're going to put 2 minutes on the timer, okay? And what we want to know, Byrd, is the first thing that comes to your mind. It's called rapid fire.
Okay.
Now, I typically tell people we may or may not judge you out loud and silently based off of these answers, but we welcome all.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Favorite genre of music?
Well, that's a rat. Favorite genre of music? It's jazz.
If your life was a movie, what would it be called?
Forrest Gump.
Pasta or pizza?
Pizza.
If a person you knew that knows you well had to give one word that describes you, what do you think they would say?
He loves people.
Glass half full or glass half empty?
Today's Byrd, half full.
Winter coat or are you a hoodie type of guy? I got a feeling it's probably winter coat.
Yes, winter coat. But I love hoodies, by the way.
Plane or road trip?
Road trip.
well, you brought this, I can't make this up. Y'all have to go in there. Tattoos or piercings?
Tattoos.
If you could have one superpower, would it be invisibility or flying?
Flying with a name like Byrd.
It's kind of implied, right? All right, last one, Byrd. If you could go back to your younger self, what's one thing you would say?
Oh. Love yourself.
Yeah. Byrd, I would like to give you the opportunity to close us out.
Well, I want to thank my friend Lee Cage. Again, I don't believe in coincidence meeting you in Atlanta, and thank you for the privilege of doing this. And, you know, what I want for everybody out there is to live lives of peace and joy. And again, follow the trail to your dreams, not the path of others' expectations. And just, you know, grab life by the minute and live every second in it. Because, you know, this life's not a dress rehearsal. Mm-hmm. And again, live lives of no regret. And really, I just want to thank you for allowing me to share with others. And I appreciate your beautiful heart and your beautiful soul. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Byrd. Y'all, in the words of my grandmother, the time cometh and now is. We'll see you next week, okay, for our finale, our season finale. I cannot wait to share who it is, but we'll see you next week. Bye, y'all.